All right, it's my pleasure now to welcome on SEN's Julian De Stoop. Julian, how are you today, mate?
Very well, mate. Thank you for having me.
No, thank you very much for coming on. First thing, I'm going to ask you a question. I saw a tweet this morning. I want to get your reaction to it. So it's about Marcus Rashford.
Yes.
Now, there's an article in The Age about the uproar from the photo of Marcus Rashford holding a Sharon. And apparently Football Australia is going to ban any international teams coming to Australia from doing any cross-sport promotion. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, it seems pretty precious to me. Look, I get the argument. I've just before I jumped on here, I saw some tweets from people like Simon Hill, who, I really respect, saying, for a long time, the AFL's, to a degree, bullied football in Australia, and there was all the dramas when we were bidding for the World Cup and the AFL weren't prepared to give stadiums up, etc. So I get that argument, but it just seems a bit petty. And the thing that annoys me, and I know these games at Manchester United and that come to Australia, it's got nothing to do with the FFA, but they just don't know how to promote themselves. So some of the failures with the A-League and football in this country, it comes back to their own failures. I mean, for example, Melbourne Victory is playing Manchester United last week. Now, you would think if you're in charge of the Victory, smash the media outlets. All right, we've got this game coming up, guys. Look, I know the ticket sales are good, but not everyone knew it was on. Who do you want? You can speak to Tony Popovich. You can speak to some of our players, but nothing. Just radio silence. So I think that's for me. I was like, oh, come on, you guys. The problem with your sport is not the AFL having a photo with Marcus Rashford. It's actually, a lot of it is your own doing because you don't promote your sport well enough. So I thought it was a little bit petty. But as I say, I agree. I understand a little bit where they're coming from, but really, do they think that's going to make any difference if Marcus Rashford or a touring player has a cricket ball or a football, or who cares really?
Yeah. I mean, with the amount of stuff that's happened over the past 3 years in the world, to get upset about that just seems like an incredibly silly thing to get upset about. And I work in Richmond, and on that Friday of that Melbourne Victory Manchester United game, I think I walked past 3 people wearing Manchester United stuff before I was like, oh, is there a game on
Exactly.
top? I honestly had no idea. Had not heard a single thing about it.
Correct. And if you want to go the other way, well, celebrate. They've actually been a success. I mean, you got 70,000 twice to the MCG, and I don't know, anyone that's been to a friendly match, they are boring as anything. Like, they are so boring. But, people want to see Manchester United, and that's great. You got a great turnout. Why don't you just celebrate that the event was actually a success and not have this little petty argument about Marcus Rashford holding a football? So, yeah, they don't get it right a lot, the FFA.
No, well said. Very well said. All right, let's move away and let's jump into you. So, as I said, you work for SEN, previously at Fox Footy. Talk about starting out in the industry. I did hear a rumor that you do have a very interesting starting story into how you got into the industry that may involve the Footy Show.
Yeah, no. So I did RMIT journalism for 3 years. Finished in 2001. Didn't get into any of the major internships or anything like that at the Herald Sun or the Age, which they used to offer back then. So ended up just writing away to a magazine called British Football Week. And they wrote back to me and said, oh, look, we've got nothing, but we've just taken over a magazine called Inside Football. If you've ever heard of it, here's, I'll give you some contacts. One was Russell Holmesby, who was the boss. So rang him and started working there, started covering country footy. And then someone left, so they just let me start doing the AFL. So 2002 did that. And then at the end of the year, the Footy Show, I think it was in the Herald Sun, they advertised, I think Eddie Maguire might have had a column. They advertised, they had 2 positions, sort of like production assistants. So I didn't really want to do it. I was happy where I was, but my mum was like, no, you got to, this is a great opportunity. You got to go for it. And lucky enough, I was one of so they had the first part of the story was you had to do they sent you a 50, you had to go in and do a 50 question AFL quiz, multiple choice, and you had to get 40 out of 50 to progress to the next stage. So I did that, and then came down to I think 49. I think it was. You got one wrong.
Do you know what the one was wrong?
Can't remember. feel like it was something to do with the Silvanis. I can't remember what it was, father, son, and I can't remember what it was. But yeah, so lucky enough, got more than 40, got through to the interview stage and got the job. So it was myself and a young bloke called Luke Jackson, who I think until very recently was still at Channel 9. He was looking after the Sunday Footy show. So yeah, it was a great opportunity. I kept working inside footy as well the next year. But as a 22-year-old, working in that environment with Eddie and Sam and, all the really good producers, it was a great learning curve. Intense environment, but it was a great learning curve, first sort of steps into the industry.
What was it about, I guess, this type of work that sort of drew you towards it? I think everyone from Australia, it's sort of, you grow up, it can be male or female. We love sports so much. And, for a lot of us who aren't not good enough to play, and I'm not putting you in that, category.
That definitely me.
I'm firmly in that category as well. And I just wanted to be involved in sports somehow. So what was it for you that sort of drew you towards the media side?
Yeah, for me, I was like you. I grew up playing basketball, played tennis, played footy, and played golf. But I loved English. I loved writing. So I reckon I got to about 15, 16, and I thought, well, I wonder if I could. I love, like, footy was the number one. I wonder if I can combine those. So from about year 10 onwards, I thought, journalism was something I'd really like to do. I'd like to write for the Herald Sun. That was sort of my first, what I'd like to do, is to read Mike Sheen and, read everyone in the Herald Sun, all their footy stuff. So that was sort of where I tailored it. Did work experience with Mike in year 11 at the Herald Sun, did some work experience at AAP, at Channel 10. So it was the combo of loving writing and loving sport. So I thought, I'm not going to play it. So that was sort of the next best thing.
No, I'm the exact same. I played a million sports and I was awful at all of them. But the problem was I was also awful at English. So writing was never going to be something I could do.
It makes it hard.
Yeah, it makes it very hard. That's why I talk.
That's right.
Talk about getting involved into Fox Footy. You worked with someone who's very, very well known on this show, Tim Bahagia, who's had a few choice words to describe yourself, which we absolutely won't get into because I'm sure they're very wrong. But what was it like? Correct. I guess. What was it like moving into to Fox Footy?
Yeah, so I worked after the footy show. I got a job, luckily, in the Channel 9 newsroom. So I just went up to help out one summer, and then Anthony Mithen, who was their main footy guy, left. So I was lucky enough just to get a job in their sports team. So I worked there for 2.5 years. And then one of my old colleagues, Leif Mulligan, he moved to, they started the Fox Sports News channel in about late 2006. And then he rang me and said, it might be something you're interested in. And things were looking a little bit shaky at night, some new people coming in. So lucky enough, I got a job with them at the end of 2006. And that was the first Fox Footy actually ended in 2006. So the first few years was just literally, we were in the old Fox Footy building, but there was only basically a couple of people from the news channel and a couple of people from Fox Sports. So it was really quiet. And then they got the rights back. So the Fox Footy channel started again. Which was great. So all those people came in. That's where I met Budgie and all the Fox Footy people. And then 2012, they moved to their building now in Dorcas Street. So they used to be in City Road, really pokey, one studio, small office. And then they built this new facility out the back of the Dorcas Street studios in South Melbourne, which is where they are today, which has 3 or 4 studios, big open space, double-story building. So yeah, great place to work. Obviously, it's all footy. I was still doing the news channel, so it was mainly footy, like it is in Melbourne, but there was other sports over summer. So you'd cover the Australian Open, you'd cover Boxing Day, you'd cover Formula One Grand Prix, you'd cover soccer, A-League, anything. So it was great. It was really good little team. But because you're in the building with Fox Footy, you got to know all those guys. In the end, the Fox Sports News had some shows on Fox Footy, sort of news shows, so AFL Tonight. So yeah, it was great. It was a really good place to work and a great environment, and you met some great people.
Yeah. When did you first get on to doing the actual TV reporting? Because I know you sort of mentioned there that you sort of love writing, but obviously you're at some point someone's going to say, hey, we're going to put you on TV. What was that moment?
Yeah, it was at Channel 9. It was in newsroom. I never really wanted to do TV. I always wanted to do newspapers. I went through uni with Sam Edmund. He was my best mate at uni, and he was the opposite. He was great at the TV stuff. So you used to do writing, used to do radio, and used to do some TV. And he was great at the TV. He really loved it. And funnily enough, he went to the Herald Sun, and I got into TV, where I always wanted to do the writing stuff. So, yeah, it was just through Tony Jones. Got the opportunity in the Nine newsroom and was really, obviously, very green, never done any TV. I needed voice training and obviously, learning how to do it on camera as well. But Tony he's a great teacher. He's just a master of his craft, brilliant script writer, brilliant on camera. So he was great for me. He taught me the ropes. And, yeah, I fell in love with it pretty quickly, especially the live stuff of television. And that's why radio is great, because it's all live, it's all immediate. But for TV, for me, the stuff I enjoyed the most was doing live stuff. Some people don't like it, they get all nervous, but I really enjoyed the live element of TV.
Yeah, I very much would not enjoy the live element because I can't speak and I need to edit it. But did Tony Jones help you encounter with the unpleasant people that you can come across in the live crosses, which you've got a history with? And what Budge actually described to me as you're a bit of a nuffy magnet.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, for some reason, I don't know why, that's true. A couple of celebrated incidents. One was, of course, the air horn at Carlton the day Brett Ratton. I don't think he got sacked that day, but the story was that he was best bet gone. So the property steward thought he'd lighten the mood and come out and put an air horn in the back of my ear. So that was quite funny. Actually, speaking of Budgie, I do remember getting back to the office that day and just getting on my computer, and every time I hit a key, an air horn came up, and that was him. So he got on my computer and played with it and did that. So I'll never forget that. And then probably the one that still gets talked about is Paddy Mills. So that was, I think that was 12 months later. I remember the morning. I was a bit rushed getting there. I was across about Dane Swan at Collingwood. I don't know why. Probably done something stupid. And I still had that. I could feel someone behind me, and I still had that moment at Carlton in the back of my mind, like, what's some idiot's behind me? What's he going to do? Unfortunately, it was Paddy Mills and Aaron Baines with the Larry O'Brien trophy, and I didn't even turn around before they were back in the car. So.
At least you've still probably got a photo with the trophy.
I still got a photo with the trophy. Paddy, to his credit, we got him on about a month later, I reckon, on Fox Sports, and had a laugh about it. Yeah, which was good. But I just wish I'd turned around and gone, geez, come on, boys, jump in, let's have a chat. But I was just paranoid it was some idiot walking past.
Yeah, you're too dialed in to even acknowledge what's going on behind you. No, that's absolutely incredible. So let's moving away from Fox Footy. You're obviously now at SEN. What was it that sort of made you wanted to go into to radio first off, and sort of what are you doing at SEN now? Yeah, no,
I always enjoyed radio, and I'd worked with SEN on and off since about 2008, sort of boundary riding around the grounds, and then some play-by-play commentary. So I sort of knew a few of the people there. Unfortunately, my position at Fox became redundant just at the start of COVID. So I had probably three or 4 months just without work. We just had our first child, so it was a nice time to spend some time at home, work out what we were going to do next. And then John Clark, who was producing Drive, or the Run Home as it is now, he was leaving. So I spoke to him, thought, that'd be a good job. I knew Andy Marr, knew Bob Murphy a little bit from Fox Footy. Spoke to them and was lucky enough to get the job. So I've been producing, it's now the Run Home with Andy Marr and Andrew Gaze for the last just over 2 years. Also look after another show there called This Is Your Sporting Life, which Sammy Edmund hosts. Mm-hmm. And luckily, I get the opportunity to fill in sometimes. I filled in for Dwayne Russell a couple of weeks ago, filled in on Crunch Time a couple of weeks ago. So, yeah, it's a good dynamic place to work. Hutchie's always trying something, getting new stations, trying new shows. So, yeah, it's a good place, plenty of opportunities, and I love radio. Radio's fantastic, and Andy Marr's great to work with, full of ideas, full of enthusiasm, full of knowledge, and him and Gazy are great old mates. So it's a good chemistry. So yeah, it's been a really good move. Like, TV was great, but I think it probably wears you down after a while, the news beats. I look at, you're out at footy clubs sometimes waiting for 2 or 3 hours in the middle of winter for people that probably won't even talk to you. So I think it's been a nice change.
Yeah, I was going to say, because a recent example, Dustin Martin, you had sort of people camping out outside his house, which I'm just guessing here. I don't think anyone who was at that house would say they woke up in the morning and go, I really want to be there.
Spot on.
Very much a bit of a shit sandwich, really.
Yep,
I guess is that sort of one of those things which is so much more attractive for radio, where you can sort of go and have those like, dynamic conversations about sport and sort of not have to worry about going to get that clickbait sort of headline stuff that, the news seems to run with.
Yeah, it's a really interesting one with the old, like the doorstop, as they call it. Because when I first started, it wasn't very common. Like it was really, this is a really big story, and you just had to get some sort of reaction. But it's just sort of morphed into, I mean, I don't know, because sometimes it's hard. It's probably harder now to get access to people from footy clubs. And like if you look at Channel 7 and 9 News are now an hour long. They used to be half an hour. So the sports breaks are twice as long. So they need more content. So it just turned into something that was, you might do twice a month because it was a big story, like I remember like when Nathan Brown shattered his leg, or big sort of injuries like that, or coach sackings, if there was the doorstop element. But it's almost become a daily event now. Like you just used to lob down to, we need to get someone from Collingwood, let's lob down there, or Richmond, or whatever it is. So it's become just a real slog from that point of view. And you're right, like there's not one journo that enjoys doing it. Like it sucks. It really does. But at times, like people do go too far. Like some people are too aggressive. Like there was Paul Dowsley from Channel 7 a few weeks ago in the go. He's right in Taylor Adams' face. And Taylor's like, can you just give me some space, mate? And he just, like, there is a bit of respect that needs to be shown at times. And the Dustin Martin one, he was going in for a scan, so that's fair game to ask him a question. And I think Nathan Buckley's, we've had this conversation before on a preseason camp a few years ago when a few journos were there. He just doesn't get the doorstop. He just thinks it's the most disrespectful thing of all time. We try to explain the context around it, and particularly at Collingwood, because all their guys are great. They're really good. They 99% of the time stop, give you their time. But so yeah, that one with Mitch a few weeks ago, I don't think he did anything wrong. He just asked one question, and with Dusty, you're not going to get anything, but you just have to throw one question. But there's a limit. Like as you said, like I don't think we need to be outside players' houses unless they've pretty much committed a criminal offence. Like really, there's been journos hanging outside players' houses because they've got a hamstring. Like really, that's ridiculous. So I can understand why the clubs get angry at that. But yeah, I don't miss that. I do not miss that part of the job at all.
No, I can imagine. Do you think that this is largely in part because of the worst website in the world, Twitter, and sort of how we retain or get information, especially with sports and news? We're not, I'm not waiting for the Herald Sun, the next day to sort of read, where you've got Twitter. It's sort of instant where, that sort of does create as I described, the shit sandwich kind of reporting and stuff that you do see. Like, is that just sort of, made it sort of explode and take off?
I think that's a massive part of it, 100%. Nothing holds in terms of the story anymore. As you say, you used to wait for the 6 o'clock news, or you wait for the Herald Sun the next day, but that doesn't happen anymore. And I think, in a way, it's led to some, what's the right word? Reckless journalism at times. Like, they're probably working on this story and they've got the pieces together, and maybe in the past they'd be like, no, I'm just going to wait. I'm just going to make sure that's all correct. I'm going to cross-check. But now with this pressure to get it out, this pressure it might not hold, and someone will get it and tweet it out, that sometimes people are going with stories that in the end they don't prove to be right because they haven't quite got all the facts right. So there is that clickbait pressure. And I know some of the Herald Sun journos, the pressure they're under, it used to be just, all right, go and do your story, write it up for the paper. Now it's like, tweet it out, get a digital copy out. They're sitting there at training, getting their digital, do a video. Like it does put a lot more pressure on the journos, but on the other end of the scale, I think it's led to a bit of sloppiness at times, just this rush to get it out.
Yeah, I mean, we saw it with the NBA and Adrian Wojnarowski with the draft. Now, this is probably a man who is widely considered the most accurate and biggest newsbreaker in the sporting world. Literally tweets out the draft's going to be this order, and when he's tweeted, he's never been wrong, and he was. Much to the chagrin of some people who may have followed him in. So it really is. It's kind of staggering how it takes off and how sloppy it can be at sometimes. There's almost as you sort of said, like, you've got one or two sources, but you're not sure, but you know
right.
someone else is going to run with that story anyway. And so you'd rather be wrong than beaten.
Yeah, which is not right. I mean, I remember my TV lecturer at uni. That's the one thing he always said. Just the main thing is just get it right. That's the one thing you got to get. That's the one rule I got. Just get it right. And if it means you're not first, bad luck. Like, you just got to get it right, because your credibility will go down pretty quickly.
Yeah, no, well said. I think while we're sort of talking about the media and the sporting landscape, I'd be interested to get your opinions on how it is from an AFL point of view at the moment. Obviously, I'm not going to put you in a difficult spot, but the AFL media specifically with, you have past players coming out and sort of being hard on certain players. And there's sort of a real lack of, how's the best way to describe it? The players aren't looking after the players, which I think is very different to what we used to see typically with media. Do you have an opinion on, I guess, this new style of AFL media coverage that we're sort of seeing, where it's almost like an outrage culture, where each week we're outraged by something, or, we're in love with something, then we hate something. Like, it's never a consistent, it's always feels like an overreaction.
Yeah, I think it's a combination of just the sheer amount of media there is in terms of just platforms. Like, 20 years, there wasn't a 24-hour sports station, there wasn't a 24-hour Fox Footy channel, there wasn't Twitter, there wasn't Instagram, like all these things. And so that's one of it. And I think we're going down this path of the American Stephen A. Smith style, aren't we? We're looking for that. Kane Cornes is sort of, to his credit, he's seen a niche there and he's run with it, and that's his stick. And I think, to be honest, I don't think Kane makes up his opinions. I think he genuinely believes everything he says. But look, I like former players in the look. I think sometimes Kane is too negative, but I like former players in the media having an opinion. The ones that get into the media and then are almost too protective of the players they play with, I find a little bit frustrating. Like, they're entitled to be. You can be critical of a player's performance or something the player's done without making it personal. So I think the best analysts they get that balance right. I think Matthew Lloyd's been really good at that. Nick Revolt, Gary Lyon, Jason Dunstall, those sort of guys. They're critical, but they're never personal. But it's the thing that's made it even more complicated now is I guess the heightened awareness we have of mental health. Like, this wasn't even an issue 10 years ago. We didn't even talk about players in the AFL having mental health. No one was coming out admitting they had mental health. So, now it gets difficult, because at times people might be criticising a player and have no idea that they've got mental health issues that comes out later on down the track. So I think at times there's an onus on clubs to be as honest as they can, whether it's mental health's tough, because obviously that's up to the individual. But even at times we might be smashing a player, or these former players might be quite critical of a player, and they're carrying a really serious injury, but we've got no idea. So at times, to have a little bit of that information, and it doesn't even mean you have to say, look, Matthew Lloyd, Marcus Bontempelli's actually got a stress fracture in his back. You don't have. It doesn't mean Matthew Lloyd has to come out and tell everyone he's got that, but maybe it puts some context around his criticism, and maybe he would soften it or frame it a little bit different. So I think sometimes there's an onus on the clubs to provide a little bit more information to the media, which might help their analysis.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely spot on. And I did an episode last year with Mitch Morton, who played for Sydney, West Coast and Richmond. He was widely perceived during his playing days as someone who was lazy, arrogant, and all this. And then it's come out that he had severe anxiety issues and had a lot of issues, with vomiting and stuff before games. And he told a story about sort of how he used to throw up before every training, every game. And he pulled off to a side before a Richmond training session and had thrown up about a few times and literally had no energy. Obviously you can't keep anything down. And there was an assistant coach, I believe, who sort of, attacked him in front of the group, sort of saying, you're lazy, you're this and you're that, you're not trying and whatnot. And it really is football culture, I guess, as a whole. I mean, I remember when I played, every coach was a screamer, whereas
100%.
now the screamers are sort of gone, and we're a lot more mindful of the fact that while we might not know if players have got mental health issues, we're much more lenient, I guess.
Yeah, no doubt. And clubs handle their players so much better now. It used to be just sort of one rule for all. These are the rules, and that's it. But they tailor everything, and they know their individuals better than everyone else. But yeah, I just think, I think at times if the media was armed with a little bit more information, it might mean at times that some of the analysis is not as, I guess, personal for the player. So, and look, some clubs do it well. Some clubs that they brief, particularly the special comments guys and the TV broadcasters, that they do brief them about, okay, just give me some context around this guy or his background. But I think at times the wider media probably needs to get that information as well.
So you mentioned before that you do play-by-play calling, which is something I'm very, very interested in getting into, because that's something that I would kill to get involved and do commentating for a Sheffield Shield cricket game. That's all I want to do in my life, which is actually very sad, but that's absolutely how I want to go about it. So talk about getting involved into that. Do you have a certain style that you like to portray, or is there particular commentators that you like to, I guess, base your style off? Talk about it.
So I got into it probably 10 years ago with a mate, Tommy Wren, who now works in Adelaide. We just did some phantom calls. We just get a corporate box at the MCG, though there's always a spare box, and do some phantom calls. And then, lucky enough, we both got the opportunity to call some games. Don't really have anyone's style that I base it on. I love Hutto. I think Hutto's the best going around, and Tim Lane's another really good one. So, the sort of the SEN style has always been, it's all about just accuracy, calling the game, and updating the score as much as you can. Because people aren't listening to the whole game. They're turning on at certain times. You need to tell them the score, tell them where the ball is, tell them the score, and be as accurate as you can. So they're probably the three things I've always based it around on radio, where TV is obviously completely different. I've never called for TV, but it's a totally different beast. You don't have to describe everything because people are watching it. So that's where I think Hutto's great. Radio and TV are so different, but he can do both equally as well. So, it's great fun. It's been a bit hard the last few years because a lot of games you've had to call off television, which is, you just can't even compare calling off TV to being at a game for a whole heap of reasons. You can't see the whole ground. You've got no atmosphere. Your field of vision's totally different. So that's not ideal. But, being at a live game, particularly a big game, and calling it is fantastic.
Do you know what the biggest moment of your, say, calling career, like maybe a mark or a goal that really just stands above?
That's a good question. I've called a couple of shots after the siren. I think there was one which was a bit difficult because I'm an Essendon supporter. It was Adam Goodes, actually, and he missed, thank God. I think it was about 2011. That was probably one that stands out. One that I remember was the day that Jared Harbrow cleaned up Jordan Lewis.
Oh, yes.
It was one of those ones you could see it coming. You could just see it coming. The ball goes up, and Harbrow charging out, Lewis like this, and it was just shocking. And he came actually on that day, which is extraordinary.
There is zero chance we'd see him for probably a month nowadays.
I think he said that seems like he was crazy to come back on. He was crazy to play next week. So thankfully, that's one part of the game they've got a lot better.
Yeah, no, the Adam Goodes one, they're like, Julian, you need to calm down, mate. It's an impartial. You have to be impartial here.
Yeah, no, it's not ideal calling your own team, but once you get into it, you're okay. But you do feel like still you're looking more at your own team and probably not analysing the performance of the other team as much. It's hard. I don't know how, some of the guys that do it call grand finals when they're passionate supporters. So why people Like why Eddie Maguire used to try and call Collingwood games, I got no idea. Like no one expects Eddie to call that unbiased. So why put yourself in that situation? So I'm not sure why he ever used to do that, because it's just he's as passionate as anyone about their footy clubs. How he could actually think he could do it without any bias, I'm not sure.
Yeah, well, they had that press read for Ed at some point. I think they had him.
Yes, that was fun. I like that concept.
Tony Shaw, and maybe
I think it was Dacos, wasn't it? The Dakes, maybe?
Yeah, and then
Chris. No, this is Chris.
And Brian Strawn. Strawny was in there as well, which is an absolutely a different thing to get into, but it is actually, it's very interesting because there was almost zero difference between how he would commentate it normally for Fox Footy.
That's right. I love that press red for Ed thing. I think it was a great concept. I know Richmond did one at one stage with KB and maybe Mick Malloy and a couple of others. It's probably a bit costly to set up regularly, but I love it. Like if there was an Essendon one, I'd probably watch one. I'd probably watch the game with just an Essendon bias on it rather than the normal commentary. So hopefully the Fox Footy boys can do that again one day.
Let's say you get a phone call from Channel 7 tomorrow and they say, hey, all of our commentators have got COVID. We need you to come in, which I'm pretty sure. I think that happened. And Alistair Nicholson.
It happened. It did happen. That happened with the footy. Yeah.
Yeah. So they give you a call tomorrow and they say, hey, we desperately need you to call Friday Night Footy. How do you change your approach or how are you preparing for the game differently to say you would for radio?
Yeah. I think the first thing you do, you'd just have to sit down and watch a couple of games off TV and just, because it's just, the danger is you just overcall the game. Oh, he's kicked it here, handballed it here. It's like, no, you don't have to say that. So, you just have to get that in your head. It wouldn't be easy to do quickly, but you're calling in a completely different way. You basically, like a lot of them, you're just calling names a lot of the time. You're not saying kick it, handball it, mark it. Like that's all self-evident. So, I think it'd be really difficult to do on short notice. But like anything, I think you'd get it slowly. But yeah, the guys that can switch from radio to TV and on the same weekend, really, it's a bloody good skill.
No, I try and do it as well. Like, much to the pain of my girlfriend, and she absolutely hates it. I'll sit there and watch like Friday Night Footy, and I'll actually commentate it. And I do notice that how I'd be absolutely terrible at it because I notice how often I'm like saying he handballs it to him.
I've actually done it
a bounce
as well. Just to practice, like just to think, if I ever did TV, it's really hard not to say it.
No,
that's how you normally take in a game. Yeah.
No, it is. We'll finish off with on two more questions. You're an Essendon man, Michael Hurley, who I went to school with, made his comeback on the weekend of VFL. As an Essendon fan, what does saying that sort of? I guess how does that make you feel? Because a long time out of the game. It's such a great story. He went through the absolute wars with his injury. How good is it to sort of see him back?
Yeah, it's awesome. And I think he's one of those guys that every Essendon person just loves. You know, he's always played with his heart on his sleeve. He's put his body on the line. He could have left like a lot of those guys. I don't blame anyone that left after what happened. But he and a few others obviously re-signed, and then he was playing great footy, all Australian. And then what happened to him was, we were lucky enough to have him on the run home last Friday, and they didn't get that early. He'd probably lose the limb. That's how serious it was. So yeah, great to see. I hope he gets a senior game before the end of the year, because I don't think he's going to go on next year. I can't see that happening, unfortunately, because he's on 193 games, so he's just short of that 200 mark. So I'm sure, given Essendon are out of the finals race, if he can get through another couple of VFL games, I'm sure he'll get at least one senior game, probably as a farewell before the end of the year. So yeah, no. And I think he's one of those blokes that even other supporters really like. So it was great to see him back out there.
Yeah, no, he's a great man. All right, hypothetical. You can take the media world in any direction you want, whether that's from an AFL point of view, sporting point of view, whatever. What are you doing?
Oh, that is a good question. That is a very, very good question.
Save the best for last.
Yeah, it is a tough one. Well, I don't know if this quarter counts, but I'd shorten the AFL season. That's the first thing. I'd get it back to an 18-round season. The current fixturing is ridiculous. The fact on a Saturday night, like last Saturday night, for example, have two really good games at the same time is so stupid. Like Saturday night should be like a Friday night. That is a marquee game, standalone game. If you want to have in the current system with 9 games, we have to have games go up against each other. I get that, but have Thursday nights, have Friday nights. If you're going to have the games up against each other on a Saturday afternoon, because a lot of people aren't watching those games. They're not big games. They're out doing their local sport, etc. But leave, and on Sunday, if you can, space them out. Maybe bring the 1:10 game a bit earlier. Have your one in the middle, which Channel 7's always going to want leading into their news. And then preferably your late ones out of Perth starting at about 6 o'clock. So the fact we just eat each other by playing games at the same time, it just really surprises me. So that's why. And I'll shorten the season, get it to 18 games. I think that'd be sensational.
Can you see a world where they're all standalone games? So that would necessarily mean Thursday through Monday.
I think one day we could. Yeah, I think we saw during COVID where we had to have games on a Wednesday.
The festival of footy.
I don't think it's a bad thing, and it's we still talk about crowds and crowds are down, but times have changed. It's more of a TV sport now. Life's busier. We see every game live. It's good quality. It's a good quality broadcast every game. So there is a reluctance for people to go, and I think it'll come back slowly. Given we'll get hopefully through COVID one day, but I don't think we're going to get back to the days of regular 80,000 crowds. I just don't think we will. It's more of a TV sport. Thursday night we'll probably never have massive crowds because it's a TV game, but it's better to space the fixture out, make it a bit of a marquee night. Clubs shouldn't have more than 2 or 3 Thursday nights a year, so you make it an event when you got one. So but the landscape's changing. It's just becoming more of a TV sport. You'll still get your rusted ons that want to go, but the ones that might go to 5 or 6 games a year, I think at the moment are going, nah, I'm happy enough to sit home on TV. Yeah,
no, you couldn't have said it any better. Thank you very much for coming on, mate. Hopefully we see you on TV again one day for more Nuffy moments because they are very, very funny to the casual viewer. And all the best.
No worries, Chris. Great to have you. Great to speak to you. And just don't listen to anything Budge says because generally it's far from the truth.
It really is. And I mean, he called you a Nuffy magnet, but I've actually genuinely never met someone who's a bigger Nuffy than him.
He's right. I actually went to the 2018 prelim with him when the Pies beat the Tigers. And there was a bit of nuffiness going on there. It's fair to say. I did see it firsthand.
I wonder if he's feeling the same way the next week with the grand final.
Yeah, I kept a wide berth then. See,
that's when I would have got closer.
Dom Sheed should be an automatic inclusion as a legend in the Hall of Fame for that. Straight away. Put him in now. Right now. Well said. A lot of pain.
Yeah, well said.